Mr. Freeman to Kotra TV. How do you see the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, will play out across the newly formed different trade platforms like the CPTPP or RCEP 15?
It's a very good question. That from the perspective of the U.S. Chamber, traditional trade agreements like the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the CPTPP are in many ways preferable because they have been negotiated and designed over a period of 75 years. So we understand what free trade agreements are. The IPEF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, is a very different exercise. So the conversation through the IPEF is supposed to be much broader than a traditional free trade agreement, and that's terrific. From the perspective of the business community, we recognize that the IPEF is the only vehicle to move, towards business-friendly policies in the Indo-Pacific. So we're all in, as they say. So we are very much excited about the opportunity to engage with all of the IPEF members, including Korea, and we think there are some tangible benefits to be gained from it.
So with China siding with Russia in the Ukraine war and the starting of the new economy and the trade cold war nowadays, and China is still being the largest trading partner with the Pacific countries, including Japan and Korea. So how do you see the restructuring of trading partners and trading allies in the context of the IPEF, especially when China is aggressively moving in the region economy and infrastructure plans as a major investors and major trade partners?
We don't think the IPEF should be, an anti-China trade conversation. The United States, as Korea, as Japan, as others, has an enormous trade relationship with China. So in some respects, the IPEF should be an opportunity to manage some of those risks across the Indo-Pacific in a way that neither is perceived as being anti-China, but also is perceived as a way of taking a next step in terms of supply chain resilience and all of those issues. So the China factor is enormous, but we don't think China either should be or needs to be the focus of trade discussions between the United States and our other trading partners in the region.
The Biden administration has recognized the strategic importance of the Indo-Pacific area to U.S. and for the U.S. global leadership and security options, and identify the role of the robust commercial relations as a key for successful regional strategies around the Indo-Pacific area. But as we know, the IPEF is a framework, not a law agreement. So how can this be a basis for crafting the friendshoring supply chain and trend strategy for sustainable and resilient and also the rule-based trade partnership?
There are opportunities in that context to reach specific agreements on supply chain issues. So while the IPEF may not result in a single big agreement, a la the CPTPP or the RCEP, it certainly is a vehicle where discrete, important, tangible progress can be made. The flexibility of the IPEF is both its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. In the sense, the weakness is that it doesn't have the elements of a classic agreement that we all understand, that our negotiators have been working on for decades. But at the same time, Its strength is that it is flexible enough to be able to account for new emerging issues that are coming up, and therefore it does provide an opportunity to look at things with a fresh eye, fresh set of eyes. So again, IPEF is a strong and not so strong approach.
What are your thoughts on the Buy American Act, and do you think that Congress will reevaluate and make an exception for Korean companies to compete in the popular sector or something?
Well, first of all, I mean, we certainly understand the rationale for encouraging greater manufacturing and greater sourcing from the domestic U.S. No question, the experience, particularly of the last 3 years, has made all of us around the world more aware of the fragilities of our supply chain. And so we are extremely concerned about efforts that would use the supply chain crisis to effectively drive domestic protectionism. We are very hopeful that some of the provisions that are impacting friends and allies, including Korea, will be managed. We are very encouraged, for example, that the U.S. administration and the Korean government are very actively having conversations about current issues, and so we do hope and believe there is a possibility of a waiver of some of those provisions.
The Department of Commerce announced that and elaborated on chips export control to China. And in response, the China press reported that some in the government insist that China needs to block the rare minerals export to the U.S., which is really mainly used for U.S. manufacturing thing. So with this escalating this kind of developments, the U.S. and China relationships is getting much worse. So with your professional experience and knowledge about China, so can you share your opinion regarding the future of the U.S. and China relationship, and what steps do you expect from the China government?
Yeah, the U.S. and China are in a downward spiral in the relationship. There's no question, and it's really difficult to see an offering to the tensions. I think there's no question that the United States has made the determination that there are certain goods that that the U.S. and China should not trade for security purposes. Semiconductor issues are a big part of that. From the U.S. business perspective, obviously, we defer to our government on matters of national security. We are very concerned, of course, that excessive actions might hamper unnecessarily trade, but it's very, very difficult in the current environment to see how the United States could not take the steps it's taken. So our hope is that the U.S. and China reach an agreement or reach an understanding that our economic relationship will be robust, but it will exclude certain elements of technology. And we hope that we can reach that point without too much tension and anxiety. But to be honest, right now we really need the two governments to come together and have a serious conversation about the direction of the two economies and the direction of the relationship of the two economies. Frankly, the two governments are not speaking. When you have the two largest economies and two of the biggest countries in the world in active tensions but not communicating in a meaningful way, that's that's a problem.